What are the rights of my in-laws upon me?
In-laws, if they are not directly related to the sister, they are not relatives to her. So they don't take the rules of Silat al-Rahim, like the way that her relatives have. And I'm saying this because a lot of people, for example, husband, will expect from his wife to deal with his parents and his family way more than the way she treats her own family members. But that's not true. Her family member have more right over her than your family. Your mom is your mom, it's not her mom. Your dad is your dad. Your sisters and your brothers are your sisters and brothers, not her sisters and her brother. They call them in-laws. But that doesn't mean that they have no right. It means that they have the right of Muslims. They have the right of being close to me because of my husband, because I love my husband, I respect my husband, so I respect his parents. They are like in maqam, my father and my mother. Yani, look in the same status that I respect and I love and I honor and them. But the rules in Islam is related to the relatives, and the relatives, they are the one that they are connected to them through blood relations, your own parents. And sometimes it is sad that you see the husband want his wife to treat her parents in the excellent way, his parents in the excellent way, while he treats her parents in the worst way. It is sad to see that he will be angry at his wife. She doesn't call his mom every day. And he will be furious if she spend half an hour with his mom on the phone, her own mom on the phone. While there is a big difference Islamically of the rights. So if this been said, that's number one. Number two, I want to say that a lot of cultures, is not only one culture, it's almost across the globe, you know, which it tells you something. That there are always these kind of jokes, or sometimes not jokes, about in-laws and how they're kind of tough on their, you know, their daughter-in-laws or their son-in-laws. You always hear that. You'll find this in many cultures, but some cultures they're more than others. And I think one of the main reasons for this is that they feel threatened. It's a jealousy. It's a wrong type of jealousy. When the mother feels that this girl took my son away from me. You know, that's why problems start happening. So you, as a smart young woman, what you need to do, you need to diffuse that by making your mother-in-law feel that there is no sense of competition at all. As a matter of fact, you are pushing your husband to be more good to his, spend more time with his mom, be more loving to his mom, and so forth. So you just diffuse that. Make sure that we're not in the competition. Make sure, moms out there, that the way your son loves you didn't change by marrying a wife, his wife. Why? Because the way I love my wife is completely different than the way I love my mother. It's like you never ever felt jealous from Starbucks or Tim Hortons, wherever you're living, by your son loving coffee so much. You're not threatened by that, because the way I love my coffee is different than the way I love you. And the same thing, the way I love my kids is different than the way I love you. The way I love my spouse different than the way I love my parents. A completely different type of love. So that's a message need to come across, need to be understood. Allah also, one of the reasons that this problems happen with in-laws, because so many in-laws, so many parents, they don't understand the new stage of life that my son or my daughter at this point. I still think that my son, my daughter is still this kid in college or high school, or the one who's staying with me in my home. No, my daughter now became independent. My daughter became, you know, married woman. My daughter is a mother. My son is a husband. My son is independent. So I need to understand the new stage, and I let it go. I move on in my life. One of the problem, when we live together, and I know how controversial this is, but I think Islamically, that's why Islamically it is the wife's right to live in a separate house and to live in her own house. And the husband should provide for her a house for herself, because that will guarantee less tension. You know, we all know there's always will have one queen in the house. And you know, if I live with my mother-in-law, it's going to be my mom the queen. No doubt about that. But why the tension? If you financially can do that, and there is no health reason for me to be living with my parents, I advise every young man, I advise the parents to tell your kids, please, when you get married, have your own home. Don't live with a son or daughter. Let them live close by, nearby, but don't live, because that's a recipe, in my opinion, for disaster. Also, one of the reasons for in-laws to be a problem happening, that many times we complain about our spouses to our parents. You know, when I complain about my wife to my mom loves me so much. No matter how much she loves my wife, she will love me more. And she will take me over her in any minute. Okay? So I know that, and every mother is like that. So if I complain to my mother about my wife, what my mother will have? This negative idea. What happened? I go back to my home, me and my wife, we go back, you know, to peace and everything forgotten, because that's how marriage is, you know. Marriage, they say the first 25 years of marriage there is a little bit of struggle, and after that they joke. But the point is there is always this kind of challenges in marriage. So after you go back and you've everything forgotten between you and your wife, but you know what? Your mom back at her room or in home cooking, you know, boiling, and like, oh my God, my son is there living bad life, and you having the biggest fun of your life, and she is like getting angry and angry. That's why don't ever complain to your parents about your spouse. If you do that, you are bringing the problem to your home. Instead of complain, consult. It's a big difference. And parents, instead of threat, advice. One of the things about in-laws as well, I would say, that when you deal with, this is a message for the in-laws, let the small things go. Don't pick on every small thing in life. You know, there is things you don't need to worry about it. Because the moment you start picking on every small thing, oh, why did you do this? Why did you wear this? Why did you do that? This is not going to be life. It's going to be a fight. Another thing important, and this message for the husband, don't ever put your wife between you and your parents. You deal with your own mom, not your wife to deal with your mom. You deal with your dad, not your wife to deal with your dad. You be a man and stand up for your home, and you speak. Don't let your wife be in the middle, because that's a very hard position for her to be in. There is a problem, you talk to your mom. You talk to your, don't tell her, tell my mom this. No, you'll be a man enough and talk to your own mother. And sister, don't ever agree to be in that person in the middle. You tell him, you know what, that's not my business. You tell, let's say your mother-in-law doing something in the house you don't like, or treating the kids in a way that you don't like. You know what, don't tell my mom not to do this to the kids next time. No, you tell your mom that. Because she take that from you as a son. But her, no, it's sensitive. Another point I would say, it's so important in laws is to set guidelines from the beginning. There is red lines. You know, even my mom cannot cross this red line. My dad cannot cross this line. My own brother cannot cross this line. Let's hypothetically imagine, you know what, my dad smokes, for example. You know what, you can't smoke in front of my kids. Period. I don't. You're my father or my mother, you're my brother. This is the red line, cannot cross. You know, my kids, if you go to your house, Dad, please, they can't watch these kind of movies. You set certain rules. Don't let your spouse be in that fight. Same thing with your wife. It's not only the husband, it's also the wife. You know, please, if my kids go to your mom's house, tell her not to do that. So set these rules and boundaries from the beginning. Make sure that you fulfill your duty towards your parents. Make sure that you fulfill you toward them. You don't fall short, so they don't want, because if you fall short, what they're going to do? They're going to blame your spouse for it. So make sure you support them, you're nice to them, you talk to them, and so forth. I have a lecture, a full lecture in details. It's called In-Laws or Outlaws. You can look at it. It has a lot of good practical points. Can be very beneficial in this regard.
What if the husband says, sorry, I can't communicate with my parents? You deal with them or just leave the matter?
I can't communicate with my parents.
Yes.
Leave them.
Just leave him?
Yeah. So I'm not going to communicate with them.
It's too late now.
Yeah, I mean, try your best not to be in the middle. Just try your best. And a person try his best not to be caught in this middle, because it's a very hard position to be in. Very hard position to be in.